Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you for joining us again as we continue our conversations here at the St. Kitts Creative Power Arts Convention. This afternoon, we continue, like I said, these awe-inspiring conversations that we've been having since the start of the convention, and I am really happy to see that we have the pleasure of engaging two distinguished figures in the creative industry in Natalie Rose and Sundra Oakley. Natalie is renowned for her jaw-droppingly beautiful costumes. Her work has set a benchmark in the industry, and she brings a wealth of experience in carnival costume design. Joining her today is Ms. Sundra Oakley, a trailblazing international actress, and while here, she will be sharing valuable insights to help hopefuls navigate the space of acting and storytelling. Together, Natalie and Sundra will delve into their experiences, share their insights on the current landscape of the creative economy, and explore the opportunities and challenges that may lie ahead. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Natalie and Sundra. Ladies, good afternoon again and welcome.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for agreeing to share snippets of your stories and some of your experiences and insights with us. I want to start with you, Sundra, delving right in. Can you tell me a little bit about your start in acting? Like, how did you come to know that this is what you wanted to do?
So is this working? Can you hear me? Okay. So from a very young age, my mother had me in dance class. Ballet, tap, modern, etc. So that was a huge part of my life for many years, and still is. I'm still a dancer. Once you're a dancer, you're always a dancer. Around 13, in high school, I bet, around that time, is when I discovered, theater class. And I really liked that. And I liked that feeling of being up on stage and evoking emotion and portraying somebody completely different and storytelling. I mean, it's why, when we watch movies, why we feel moved and why we have certain movies that we love and why we love certain actors. So at that time, at 13, I said, I want to be an actress. That's what I want to do. I wanted to act and dance. I wanted to do both. So it was around that time, and by age 16, I was acting professionally. Yes. Don't ask me how I did it. I call it the Capricorn mind. We just set our minds to it and we go through it yes.
Before I shift to Natalie, give me a little bit more. How did your parents respond to your wanting to pursue it professionally as a career? Because here in the Caribbean, it's not always welcome news.
Exactly. And I tip my hat to my mother a lot for being so open-minded and supportive in me pursuing that journey, because at 13, 14, 15, 16, it's more a hobby, right? It's more, something fun to do. It's a completely different thing when you say, I'm going to university and I go spend big money. If I go get 1 degree, that has the highest uncertainty of any kind of employment. So I definitely tip my hat, because yes, growing up in a Jamaican household, a Caribbean household, that is not what we're used to being encouraged or even just encouraged or accepted even, right? So it's all thanks to her, because it would have been a different story if I had to fight that.
Okay, true. Natalie, what about you? Tell me about your start.
I started off doing Monday wear for my friends. It was just a hobby at the time, because prior to becoming a carnival costume designer, I was an engineer. So at the point in time, I was in civil, working for a company in Trinidad, and I was pursuing petroleum engineering on top of that, because I had a great desire to make more money. And in the moment, I was doing carnival costumes as a hobby. And I mean, being in the engineering field was a bit rough as a woman, and I had my challenges, until one day, I really, I had it out with my workers. And it was something that just really ride my spirit, and I said, "Here, what? Today's my last day." I left. I remember my boss calling me and be like, "Natalie, no, just relax. Take a month off, relax. I'll get it rectified. I wouldn't have anybody disrespecting you." And the next morning, I went to work and I dropped my resignation, and I never turned back. But funny enough, God never lifted his hands off of me, because from there, I had my opportunity to do my first costume with Fantasy that year. I also got the production, and the earnings from that production, I was like, this is months of work. I am going to try and my best to see how I can really get into it. And I feel like after my first good costume, that opened up the doors for many opportunities, and client after client was coming in, and that's how it just went on. Like, it was so on point. Like, it was meant to be, literally. I didn't feel like I had to force the situation. However, prior to that, when I did do my first Monday Wear launch, I remember being hired by a band in St. Kitts. Yeah, my first opportunity, and they hired me to do a costume. However, I did not know anything about how to accept this opportunity. I didn't know about designers' fees. I did not know about material cost. And of course, when I did require a certain amount, it was way below what was needed. It was only while buying materials I realized that, I cannot execute this costume. And of course, the client and I, that didn't work out well for me at the beginning. And I remember on my old Instagram, out of the blue, I had a fake page comment and saying, "Don't hire this pretty dummy." And I feel like that was the start of my career, right? And I feel like if I was not strong enough, I would have just tell myself, you know what, I'm starting off bad. I don't know how to progress in this, and let me go back to what I know. But you take these opportunities to actually tell yourself, here, what, you need to do some more research, you need to get in contact with people in the industry, get some advice, and that was also a pivot. That also contributed to me actually telling myself, here, what, for me to succeed, I have to research and do what I need to actually progress in this.
Fantastic story, Natalie.
Yeah.
And proof of your gumption to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Sundra, you mentioned that you had your mom's support in pursuing your dream of being a career actress. What are some of the biggest challenges you would have encountered when you transitioned from Jamaica to actually trying to make it on the big stage?
So I went to university in America. So my whole career has been in America, which of course is a giant stepping stone, right? And I'm fully aware of that. It doesn't fall short on me. But that being said, it is a difficult industry even for those there in a market as big as America. And when you are a black actress as well, we all know what needs to be said about that. So it's one of those things that I understand, and I recognize the privilege I've had by starting in America, and why I'm also so passionate about helping up-and-coming actors in the Caribbean who want to get into that field, because I didn't have anybody guiding my hand. I went to one of the best institutions in the world to study acting, and there was nobody that takes you by the hand after you pay all of that money, mind you, that is guiding you into how to be in the business of it, right? Because it is a business. I was lucky, I was fortunate that I had people, guides, angels along the way who I learned from. Fortunately, I never fell into any kind of negative traps, as you hear about many. I feel very much, covered and protected and guided. With that being said, I know that's not the case for everybody. And that is why and because I love my Caribbean people, and I think we have some of the biggest talents here in this region, and our voices are needed now more than ever. right? Especially now that the industry has opened up a bit to where it's the day of diversity. I'm sure we've heard that word ad nauseum, but it is what it is. And, you know, we have so many stories here that are untapped. And how many times have you seen something on television and seen actors that are supposed to be West Indian / African, and you're like, oh God, from the fact that, because I get auditions and it will say that, oh, we need Caribbean, West Indian, African. I said, they don't know what they want. They clearly don't know. Well, at least they're going to get something authentic with me. But how many things have we seen where you hear an accent and it's like nails on a chalkboard? So as I was saying to one of my attendees before, use your voice. Use your voice because it's needed now more than ever. Sometimes you have to be the one to show, hey, to show them what they didn't even know that they wanted. Yeah.
Okay, just to stick with you a little bit more, Sundra, as a Jamaican who continues to enjoy success in your chosen field, have you ever encountered scenarios where, in order to be seriously considered for an opportunity, you had to kind of like clamp down or minimize your Jamaicanness?
Well, most things that I audition for in America, I use an American accent. It's funny, it's only in recent years that I've booked a few jobs that actually wanted a Jamaican. Funny enough. So, again, I recognize because I grew up in the two places, it allowed me to be able to straddle both worlds, right? And I feel like I consider myself a connector, a bridge. That being said, even when I do speak with an American accent, I've had people say to me, where are you from? And being in this business, you have to be a little coy because sometimes these people, for an industry that is supposed to be about imagination, they have very little. You'd be so surprised. So I tend to pick and choose who I tell it to. Once I get the job, it's fine, it's mine. It's in the casting, though, that you have to be a little bit, you have to play a game a little bit. One thing I will never do is dampen my Jamaicanness. Them naga make me do that, right? And anybody who knows me knows Sundra Guanso. But I know how to play the game a little bit. It's a little bit of a dance, right? I will not do any job where you're going to have me do a caricature of a Caribbean person. Find somebody else. As much as I may want the money, please find somebody else, because you're not going to have me insult my people like that. Get somebody else. And also, what we do lives forever, you know. Because just think, our great-great-grandchildren will be able to go on whatever the YouTube of 20 whatever, 21, 22, 55 is, they'll be able to pull it up. How do I want that to be a representation when I could have said no? Yeah. I don't believe in lack. I believe there's always going to be something else. So I'm not afraid to say no.
Okay, fantastic. Natalie, what are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered in your journey with costume design?
My biggest challenge is bringing fresh ideas on a rapid turning wheel. Because the amount of costumes I execute, sometimes within a year, is crazy. And I always have to bring something fresh and new to fit the themes that my client wants. And I always have to make sure I am pleasing my client to the best that I can, because you don't want to lose a client. You want next carnival, they're like, Natalie, we need a costume this year. So it's really difficult. It's mentally, physically draining. I think one of the biggest things I've also I've been dealing with, and I've mentioned this recently in my session, I have had to put myself in a place where I have to now pick where my energy goes, especially since I've become a mother, right? I started to find myself disassociating myself from relationships, not my personal relationship per se, but I feel like any relationship that isn't contributing something to me, if it's just there as the, let's just go hang out and have a drink, or let's just gossip. These things I have had to rid myself, and I felt like there has been sometimes I feel like I'm not the best friend, but it's not intentional. It's literally me trying to preserve some energy for things. So much of my energy has been going into designing. When I do have downtime, I need to sleep. I also need to do my research. I need to think. And unlike other jobs, like I said, you see, when you're a creative, your mind is constantly going. And even if I may be sitting, I may be thinking of my next creation. And by the time I'm finished thinking, I'm exhausted because it plays on your body as well. And I have been finding myself in places where I have to sacrifice certain things because I have a bigger goal in front of me. Yeah?
Sundra, what factors help to influence your choice of roles? And are they, outside of what you just shared about caricatures, how do you decide which projects align with your artistic goals?
It's interesting when you get audition material, you don't know what the character is going to be. Some I love more than others, but I still see each one as a potential job, and I say, okay, what can I find in this that is redeeming? Sometimes I find a job or a character that comes in and it's not that exciting, but let me do it as an exercise in my job, because acting is one of those jobs where you spend more time not doing it than you do doing it in a year. If you think of 365 days in a year, you spend more time, more of those days not on a set or on stage, depending on what you're doing or who you are, than actually doing it. That being said, I have received auditions where I read the material, couldn't get past the first few lines or a couple of pages, and I remember the first time that happened, and I agonized over telling my agent and manager that I didn't want to do it, because one of the things that we as actors go through is this feeling of lack, like we have to take everything. You want to act, you need to do it, then that's what you do, right? And that's just something that I've had to learn to overcome as a woman. You know, I've had years of experience now, so that adds to it. But I've learned to say no. So for that audition, I couldn't. If I can't even stomach the material for the audition, how do I expect to be on set and have to do this job and not die 1,000 deaths inside every time? And, you know, it was interesting. Again, I've had a lot of wonderful angels and guides in my life that come in the form of human beings that give me messages when I need them. And I remember saying to my manager, I hate this material, because she kept saying, are you going to turn it in? And I said, I hate it. She said, well, Sundra, you don't have to do it. Just let us know and we'll give it to somebody else. And it was a big exercise for me as a big woman to realize, here I am, we're fighting against waiting for permission to say no. But I feel it now in my spirit more than others to say, okay, this I will do. This, it doesn't excite me as much, but what can I take away from it? Being a different character, working on material or with a writer or director that I have never met before, and seeing that as an experience to put into my pocketbook of artistic and professional experiences to tap into.
You know, what you said there about feeling comfortable or learning to feel comfortable with saying no, I think there's a lesson there for relative newcomers to your industry as well, because sometimes you might find people so desperate to make it or so desperate for opportunities, they accept things and allow themselves to be placed into situations that doesn't agree with their spirit. And then I guess that leads to a breakdown in their own emotions, a breakdown in their psyche and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lesson there.
Which is why I'm passionate about teaching about this business and giving some of my experience so that they can know you have agency. You know, as women, as black people especially, we're so used to having to acquiesce, having to have that stiff upper lip, just, you know, suffering is good because you'll get your payoff later, and you know, there's a lot that we're having to kind of counteract to live in a modern world and live a softer life, as they say, and it takes a little bit of unlearning, right? So I say, well, if I can do my part in teaching and giving you information, like in one of my sessions, I asked them, do you know how much an agent or a manager should get? And when I heard what some of them were saying, I said, oh, dear God, please, no. Don't you ever pay anybody that amount of money. You know, and you could see the look on their faces. I said, if anybody ever says you owe them this percentage, you walk out of that office as fast as you can. And that alone, if that can empower somebody to feel a little bit more confident of walking in this business, right? And or trying to pursue it, because it's hard, then that's what I'm happy to do. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Natalie,
Yes.
earlier you shared a little bit about your pivot from engineering to carnival design full-time.
Yes.
You also gave us a little bit of insight into some of the challenges you would have encountered as an engineer. How does that measure against the challenges you face as a full-time costume designer?
You know what? This is something I also spoke about recently with one of my friends. My challenges as an engineer were maybe 100 times easier than my challenges now as a costume designer. Yeah. I feel like I could battle men being disrespectful because I'm a Capricorn too. Nothing is stopping me, right? I feel like I'm unstoppable, one. So that's easy to manage. Also, I feel as an engineer, I feel like I lived a more private life, right? Yeah, I lived a very much more private life. I go to work, I come back home. If I have some calculations, I do it home. I get ready for my concrete pour in the morning. And you go about your life, and I felt like that was simpler. But carnival costume designing has... it has its pros and cons. I love being a creative. I've always been a creative. I wanted to be a creative since I was in school. I applied and I got into Parsons and Otis and I got into SVA. I got into schools and I got partial scholarships. But my parents weren't able to finance the rest that was needed because I really wanted to go to Parsons. And I wanted to become an animator and I wanted to work in Disney. And it never formulated. And I remember 2 weeks before my deadline for university in Trinidad, I was like, I'll just send my CXC and keep and see if I get in. And I did get in, and that's how I became an engineer, right? But I felt like the life I was living as an engineer felt simpler. You have a routine, your life day to day is the same thing, the calculations does not change, you know what you have to get, you know what you have to do. What's the most that could happen? You probably measure wrong some volume and it could be rectified, but as a carnival costume designer, I feel like my life has been constantly in front of people's eyes. So any mistake that I make, it's in front of their eyes and open to critiquing and open to social media. And this new population that we live in, this new generation, everything is for social media. You fall victim to propaganda so very easily because you are popular. And popular by means of the art that you put out. Not necessarily that I'm in front of your face saying, hey, it's me, look me here, right? It's basically I've fallen within that popular category because of my costumes. Because people love carnival. They love anything fashion. They love anything that is falling within that entertainment realm, right? So my challenges lie there. So I feel like to limit how much challenges I endure, I also do not showcase my family in terms of my personal relationship, my child. I don't think I'll ever put them out in social media. I'm very careful with that. Because of what I've had to endure as an individual, what I've had to endure as a costume designer, I fall victim to so many negative things. Well, Dion, you would know because you're in Trinidad. And I don't believe that everyone is capable of dealing with such harm. Like how I'm built and what I've endured in my life, a regular person would have been already out of the industry, disable their Instagram and move on with life. But I have to accept that sometimes with greater things in life, there are greater problems that you have to battle with. But I've also put myself in a position to mitigate certain things. Like you see my direct family, my relationship, my household, my child. I have made up my mind that they will never be on social media. at all, because it brings so much negativity. And the greatest challenge I have is also people say, how are you able to strive so well in an industry that you weren't really directly, you didn't start in? And especially for those who have been in the industry way longer than you, have not been granted the opportunities that I've been granted, because essentially I've been in this for 6 years, minus COVID. When COVID started, I just started. So I felt like my career had now restarted after COVID, right? And I don't feel like a lot of people are going to be able to endure certain things. And I put myself at fault for some of the things that happened as well, right? Because at one point in time, I was too available. I was too much of people's friend. I allowed people too much in my space, because you think carnival and you think you want an army and you want a crowd to move with you. When you put out a costume, you have 100 people coming for it one time. But because of what I've experienced in life, I no longer want that for myself. Buy my product. Support me because you appreciate me and you love my work, and that should be it. So now, as I said, one of the challenges I have is I've started to reduce my relationships with people. And it's not necessarily only just of energy. I also have put up a barrier to protect myself and anything that I'm doing.
Okay. You raised some very interesting points there for both of you. People who are in the public eye through your art, Sundra and Natalie. Some people might argue that you chose this career, you chose to be in the public eye, so you have to take whatever comes with it. Yes. What's your response to that?
Like I said, in anything you choose to do in life, you have to accept that there are pros and cons. When I initially started, I did not think this is what it would have been like, because looking on, we know design. Like when I first started, I did not know what Solange Govaya looked like. And this is a reality. And she has been she has an empire in Trinidad. And I only knew her when I started designing, and I got into Tribe, and then I knew who she was. So carnival costume designers weren't somebody that people would have gravitated towards so much. But I feel like with this new era and the introduction of social media, because I think Instagram started when I would have in my early 20s. So when they build their career off of the website posting their costumes, and that's it. But now we are in an era where you cannot just sell your product. People want to see who is also behind the product, unfortunately. And it requires a lot of interaction, because people gravitate toward who you are before what you provide. And then if they like you, they buy it, which is unfortunate, but it's also inevitable, because this is what we are in now.
Okay. What about you, Sundra? How do you navigate fame, and where do you draw the lines of demarcation?
It's definitely a balance, a dance, that you're constantly trying to find your center with. Yes, we're in the public eye. Yes, I'm out, I meet people, and I like being able to speak to people, but I also have boundaries. But then I also think people should recognize when you're one person and 500 people are approaching you, it's very different than one person approaching 500. So again, being able to set boundaries for yourself is important. And if that means I need to sneak off into a corner, I cannot do anything, like if I can't speak for somebody, I'll say, I'm so sorry, I cannot at this, I'm really sorry. But then also know that you can't control anybody else's feelings and how they take anything. You can have the best of intentions. If they're going to take it a certain way, what am I going to do? You know? All I know is how I operate and what my intention was. And I have to preserve myself, because at the end of the day, I have to take care of me and my family. Right? I have a family I have to go back to. I have 2 boys that I want to make sure that I see their children. You know what I mean? And if I don't take care of Sundra first, in whatever that entails, then what good is that? What good is that? Because, I don't know. It's a dance. I mean, how many years I'm in this business, 20 odd, and you're still trying to find that center of how to navigate accessibility. And in my Instagram, it's interesting. Like I've had my family on there, not as much, right? I will ask my boys, is it okay? My husband doesn't really like it that much, so I don't. So you'll see me, right? And you see me out and about, because also know that it's curated what you see on Instagram. You're seeing selected versions of our lives on Instagram, no matter how many stories are put on there daily, and you think, oh my God, they're living these fabulous lives. It is a curated version of lives, right? I mean, I even look at some of my Instagram and I'm like, boy, I'm really fooling these people today. They must think I look good, because if they only knew what was behind the scenes. I'm even saying to myself, you damn liar. So that's, it's an interesting thing, the social media space, because it has become this whole thing of reality, which is very scary to me, because people don't even know how to be in reality anymore. And I don't know where it's going to go. I personally kind of hate that, even though I'm an actor, I have to make my Instagram page look a certain way. And it's me one doing it, I'm going to have team. Oh, really? No, may have Sundra and our two hand, right? Anybody want to be on my team, please help me do, because I'm trying to do enough things nowadays. But it's crazy. It's an interesting phenomenon, and I don't know. Part of me just says I just do as much as I can, and if that all who come, all who don't. That's all you can do.
We live in the era of people getting cancelled. How much does that color influence your reactions to situations? Do you ever operate in the space of being, oh my gosh, if I do this, or if I respond in this way, the possibility exists that there's going to be some big furor on social media, and then they're going to start cancel Natalie and cancel Sundra?
For sure. I've been placed in positions where I felt like, well, Dion, you know it. I've been placed in positions where I was ready. I was ready to unleash all I can possibly unleash to protect my image and protect myself. It was crazy. Like, there was no holding back. My anger was through the roof. I have some lawyer friends who called and like, before you do anything, please think. I need you to think. I need you to use your mind. Please be aware that you have a brand. And nothing, no matter what you do in this situation, it will be negative. As much as you have proof of whatever you want to showcase, it will be damaging. Be careful. And with them advising me, I told myself, you know what? Silence. Let it be. You have nothing to prove. Let it be. Because there will be a point where, there will come a point where things will start to unravel on its own. Right? Without a force, life have a way and God have a way of revealing what needs to be revealed in that moment. And look at me now, striving, happy, with a son, a family, and I have no desire to prove anything, because without me having to showcase much, everything is showcasing for itself. So now, with that experience, nothing can really trigger me to retaliate. I've been through what can be considered the most hurtful, hardest challenges in life that I don't think I will ever get over, to be honest. It will always be a lingering hurt. I also feel like there's nothing that can ever rectify that matter. But it has also taught me that nothing is worth getting out of character for. Nothing is worth you losing your years and nights of no sleep and finances and effort and challenges. Nothing is worth that 5 seconds to damage what all that work you have done to lose out on something that you would not be able to fix. My brand, I've put all into it. I love where I'm at. I love my costumes. I just recently, I was looking back on the progression of my work, and it took a lot of dedication. And because I'm able to now strive and I feel like I'm now seeing my way, nothing is worth coming out of character for me to lose all of that. And it is possible to get cancelled because people aren't aware that there are always different sides to a story. There's one side, there's another side, and there's the absolute truth. And sometimes you are placed in a position where your up might seem like the more truthful because of who they are. Avoid retaliation. Like I've told myself, I have to avoid retaliation. Nothing ever will ever make me come out of character because I'm telling you from that experience to now, which has been years, I have seen God put so much greatness into my hands. And I felt like maybe that was needed. As hard as it was needed for me to now blossom into who I am and receive what I'm receiving now.
Yes, I do think about the whole cancel culture. And I have many times censored myself and not posted something or not said something because there's two people that live in me. One that ready for fight. I'm ready for just lay some people with some things. And then there's the evolved part of me that has said, I have worked too hard on myself to go down to that level. You know, I once was in a situation and I was able to tell somebody, I said, you know what, here's the thing. I can probably call up 2-3 dozen people right now who can attest to my character right now. I could just call them up right now and say, can you please give me a character reference? And they could be on the treadmill doing exercise and they wouldn't even have to come off. And I get confirmation of that every day. And I say, you know what, my Sundra's spirit, Sundra's character speaks for itself and is why I am here, why I'm here. And usually, yes, things, I believe certain instances come into our lives. Perhaps it's a lesson. Perhaps it's to see how, you know, are we strong are we steadfast in our character, and are we steadfast in our belief, as it prepares us for something greater, as I've seen a few times. But then realizing, especially with cancel culture, and I put it hand in hand with social media, you know, we live in an age where people, they're not reading, one, right? People aren't reading. They're reading headlines and basing their understanding and their beliefs based on the bold headline that they see and then forward, right? The people who take the time to stop and listen and dissect and hear opposing views, or hear like to say, oh, there has to be another side to the story, they're usually the ones that tend to be quiet. It's unfortunate that the squeaky wheel tends to get the oil. They like to make the most noise. So what are you going to do? Are you going to combat ignorance on a post? It's not worth it. It's not worth it for my mental well-being. You know, and also we live in an age where people's attention spans are like that of a fruit fly. So, you know, they will forget it when the next thing they know, the Kardashians do something else, and then, oh God, here, you know, forget about what happened here. So sometimes you just have to, you know, there's a Ifa proverb, Surani Babaiwa, patience is the father of good character, and sometimes you just have to be patient and let the tide just go. And then you're settled.
Okay, thank you. Shifting gears just a little bit.
Yes.
How do the both of you view the role of the creative economy in shaping the future of arts here in the Caribbean?
I appreciate any effort to help young people or even those who want to get into the creative realm now. I appreciate any efforts to help get them to be focused on it, because I feel like for a long time creative art has been considered a hobby and not essentially something that you can make good money from and have a comfortable living. Fortunate enough, I've fell into a time that I can strive off of being the creative that I am. And I feel like if countries can put more effort into actually grooming our creators, and opening avenues for them to be financially stable or make earnings, it will actually propel our economy, right? Because there was a point in time, I would say, prominent schools back in Trinidad. If you're not doing sciences, business, medicine, you are nobody. You know, I forcefully studied sciences because I said, oh, I need a backup plan in the event. But if we can start to shape the minds from young into understanding that you can have access to great living and great opportunities, and you can focus on being a creative from young. Can you imagine if what can be formulated if they get those primitive years to grow their skill and then contribute to the economy of the country at the point in time? Because when I look back, I'm like, I went to school for 6 years. Why? You know, if I started to shape myself from since I just graduated high school, how further along in life I would have been, what I could have been contributing to my nation. But the reality is, it all boils down to our governments as well, and how much effort it goes into shaping the minds. You know, it's a bit unfortunate because some places don't put as much effort. Like when I saw St. Kitts doing this, I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Such a small nation to be thinking so further ahead than the bigger nations. Yeah. It's wild, you know. So those who have been able to attend, they are the next ones to assist in helping the economy. Because from the skills that they are learning now, we could be developing new creators. You know, in a large range of job titles, you know. So yeah, it will benefit the economy in a big way. I mean, back if I'm Trinidadian, oil and gas is no longer contributing. Carnival was our next thing, and unfortunately, but fortunately, countries are picking up pace with Carnival. The options have grown greatly, and when Trinidad and Miami were just the two places for Carnival, we have big competition now with everywhere else, Grenada, St. Lucia, Jamaica. It's never ending. So now the competition is stiff. So we have to be mindful that we have to put focus on our creators, put focus on things to help grow our minds, because at any given moment, somebody else is going to take it.
Yeah. You know, the other night at our opening ceremony, when Minister Duggan spoke about the young boy who wanted to be a creative and it was never fostered or encouraged, and that young boy is now a big man and still has that yearning inside of him. Even though he became minister, he still has that desire in him. And you know, I think about that, like, you know, having a dream unfulfilled is, I think, one of the greatest tragedies in life. Because, you know, we come to this planet, I feel we come to this planet to bring our full selves. That is what helps humanity, not being like everybody else and being a doctor or a scientist or a lawyer, unless that's what you want to do. I feel it's the motivation of those avenues, going down those avenues. I feel the motivation behind it is what really makes the difference. To me, to see the nations of this region now recognizing the effort, when we know, growing up, again, we can appreciate movies, we can appreciate musicians, we can appreciate the people who do them, but we never think about encouraging those to follow the path, the road to get to there. You don't become Will Smith just so. From high school to you making how many millions a picture. There's a journey, there's a road. So to know that countries are doing that, are recognizing it's viable, right? It's going to help the economy in so many ways, especially now where, you know, just think in the next 10, 15 years, what are going to be the big money makers in the world, right? The arts never go anywhere. From the time people were creating, let's see, in Shakespearean time, in the whatever little, courts and stuff like that, or, you know, just think, arts are still here. They've never gone away. In times of peril, in times when you're feeling down, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling scared, what do you turn to? Usually movies, songs, COVID, we were all up in our Netflix, right? We were all watching things because we wanted to escape, and it encouraged, it inspired us, right? It made us forget about our worries. Don't tell me that's not an essential economy. You can't tell me that it's not. So I think my heart is so happy for the young boys and girls who now probably have a chance to say, Mommy, I want to be a dancer. And you can be a young boy and say that, and your parents are like, okay, this, you know what, you can, as opposed to feeling like I can't. Or, you know what, I want to paint. I want to create carnival costumes. And to be encouraged, like, my heart is so full in thinking that they won't have to maybe be the generation where that is the norm, is to discourage and say you can't do that, but to be like, okay, baby, you can do that. And how many happy people that might make in this world by letting them feel that they can fulfill their dreams. That's just a plus in dollars, and it's a plus in morale, and it's a plus in spirit for nations and the world, I believe.
Great point, Sundra. And I have to admit that I was once very guilty of downplaying my child's dreams. I think as adults, sometimes we tend to burden our children or younger people that we interact with our own insecurities. So we are thinking this is impossible, so it's impossible for me, so obviously it's impossible for you too. Just to quickly give an example, my daughter approached me when she was 4 and told me she wanted to write a book. And I laughed. And not for her to see, but I laughed and relayed the story to my husband. 4 years watching about writing a book. And every day for a week, this was during COVID, she would come, Mommy, I want to write a book, Mommy, I want to write a book. And I did nothing to help. And on the 5th day, she had this little table and a chair, she dragged it over to where I was working, and she wrote her book. She had 7 books published by the time she was 7, and now she's about to publish her 8th. She'll be 9 this year. So I'm just, I'm just sharing that to say that what you just said about us encouraging our children to really pursue what they're passionate about, I have seen firsthand what that could do. So I really, really think that that is a message that we need to repeat time and time again, and maybe that will help with the shift that's needed in the general mindset here in the Caribbean about jobs and career paths.
I think you could we give ourselves a little grace, yeah? Because if you think about historically what has been indoctrinated into us, you know, we're bucking up against a system and a couple of 100 years of a mentality that we're now, you know, being birthed out of. So we should give ourselves some grace in thinking we're doing something differently now, right? What we didn't know before, now we know. And then our descendants are going to benefit from us breaking that. So, you know, we can only do what we do. Other cultures perhaps don't have that because they weren't burdened with other things that we have had to be shackled with. So I think, you know, seeing that, realizing like, oh, I didn't help her, but she still had the gumption to go and do it, that just shows, 1, her spirit, and 2, you didn't dampen her. You didn't dampen her. So, you know, it's a learning curve for all of us, but especially for those of us who are in the Caribbean, we're not encouraged to pursue that path and of the arts. That is what makes me so excited right now, because most people aren't used to hearing our voices. And even in my career, you know, and I had somebody in my session talk about, oh, but they want, when they're thinking a Caribbean accent, they want Jamaican. And I said, I understand that, I recognize that. But guess what? Now we live in an age where, you know, we're post-2020 George Floyd in America, where they want to hear more black voices. And I said, there's many, so use your voice. Let them know this is what a you know, Kittitian voice is like. Teach, because sometimes they need to hear it, right? Because they don't know. What did I say earlier? They call us West African, Caribbean, all in one pot. They think you, me, you, and somebody from Barbados all sound alike. And I've had to tell people, no, that ain't it. So sometimes you're going to probably be the pioneer, right? You're going to be the one to make that step. Mm-hmm. You never know where God is going to place you. You think me teaching I created a thing in Jamaica, teaching actors. I didn't think I was going to do that. I had no idea, but because I'm passionate that I want to teach so that you're not taken advantage of, you know, I still act. but I do this as well. And as an artist, we can be this and, this and, this and, slash.
Thanks for that. I feel like we're on the cusp of a great transition as it relates to how we view the importance of the creative arts here in the Caribbean. And like you said, I think it's really, really exciting. I think we're in a good place, and it's just for us to continue on this trajectory. As we prepare to wrap up, what advice would you offer to creatives on here in the Caribbean who are looking to make an impact in their respective fields?
I would say work relentlessly. Eliminate all negative voices. Take criticism as it comes, but learn from whatever is being criticized. If you can find means and ways to improve your craft, do just that. Do as much research as you can. And the best way to improve your craft and get recognition is to work. Do put out as much as you can, as often as you can. We are in an era where you can be immediately seen via social media. Use the platform. It's free, you know. And for you to get recognized in whatever you're doing, I would always say is do your best. Give your best. And even if you feel like you're not at your best, still do as best as you can at your capacity at the moment. But with more research, with more time spent on your craft, it's going to improve. Like somebody said to me recently, no lie, there's like, Natalie, I think you've reached your 10,000 hours. It takes 10,000 hours of work to actually perfect what you're doing. And I've now reached there. My costumes are now looking like they are quality. They are able to stand up against my designer friends who have been in the industry way longer. But I've also put in so much time. I've abandoned so many of my nights, even as a mother. Sometimes it hit me because I have to do all-nighters to get my work done, all-nighters to complete tasks. But while completing a task for a client, it is work. It is practice work. Because now the work that I'm doing is practice for my next project, which will be greater, and so on, and it keeps moving. So it takes 10 hours. If you're now starting, you're at hour number 1. Calculate how long that 10 hours is going to take you. Mine calculated, I calculated, and it was about 4 years. But the more work you do, is the greater your craft is going to be, and the greater your craft is, it is inevitable. Somebody's going to see it and mention it, and it keeps moving along the line, and you don't know where your name is going to be mentioned.
I co-sign on that 100%. I say this, get curious about the thing that you love. Learn about the different aspects of it, right? Because usually there is an ecosystem around what it is that you love to do. Get curious about that. Learn about the different aspects and embrace and fall in love with putting in the hours. Stop, I say to some of the younger people, please stop trying to see how you can shortcut the amount of time. I have a friend, he's a director, an assistant director, and some younger person asked him, how long have you been doing this? He said, about 15, 20 years. And the person said to him, I'm trying to do it in less time. I'm so glad they didn't say that to me. However, that to say to anybody of all ages, and especially the younger people, because I think they believe of like, I can do this. Yes, you can do it. Go after it. But fall in love with putting in the time, because there is something so sexy and romantic about when you put in that hours and you know your stuff that nobody can take away from you. Oh man, that is the best feeling. But you want to give quality. I know we live in a very disposable type of time, right? Clothes, music, everything, fashion, but there's something about quality when you can go to a museum and see a piece that was made 200-300 years ago that's still standing, seeing a building that is still standing over 300 years, seeing a vehicle that was made in the early 1900s or whatever that's still there because it was quality. Fall in love with giving the best that you've got to what you're doing and learning about it, because the cream is what's going to rise to the top and what people are going to notice when they're tired of the fastness of it all and they want some substance. You can eat McDonald's and it feels, I tell my children, I can buy you McDonald's, but after a while, your body's going to tell you, I want something real, So it may feel good at the moment, but afterwards you need something real. So fall in love with that real. Fall in love with learning and getting all aspects of your chosen career.
Awesome. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of this insightful and enjoyable and very engaging conversation. Natalie and Sundra, thank you so much for sharing as much as you have.
Thank you for having me.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
To everyone who is here looking on, thank you. To all our viewers online, thank you so much for staying with us. Just a reminder that our conversations continue tomorrow. Please go at 9:30 a.m.